Effects is a collection of powerful technical and creative tools that can speed your workflow and reduce your dependence on third-party plugins. Unlike third-party plugins, Flame Premium integrates these tools into the heart of your workflow. The new FX tools in Flame Premium 2012 are GPU-accelerated procedural nodes for basic compositing and image manipulations, such as warping, rippling, edge detection, embossing, and adding film artifacts. In this video, we will look at 2D transform, blend and comp, plus a variety of new additional FX tools. The Flame FX tools are available from the desktop under the FX2 tab. You can see here you can access those modules directly, or of course they're all available inside the batch environment. Here you see one of the ones we want to talk about first is the 2D transform node. The 2D transform node is a new tool that allows you to do simple repositions. What's great about the 2D transform node is it actually has two different modes. If we go into transform type for pan and scan, notice that only the appropriate tools are available. You can basically do just X and Y transformations as well as scaling. If we toggle back to the perspective mode, notice that you can also do rotations and shearing. There are different options also for repeating. You could tile repeat as well as mirror repeat. And you can also change the field of view. If we start to make some adjustments, for example, let's go ahead and slide the image over, you'll notice that on screen there are also different widgets. So for example, I could start to do rotations directly on screen, as well as movement here in X and Y. And I can also change the center point of my image. That will allow me to now scale from the center of this image. Another nice option is the possibility to change the canvas resolution. This will allow me, without changing the aspect ratio of the pixels, to extend the canvas and create any size that I'd like. And of course, there are also options for anti-aliasing as well as motion blur. Blend and Comp is a deceptively simple tool that allows you to quickly composite multiple inputs without having to enter action. Before I show you how it works, let me just give you a quick tour of this Blend and Comp setup. So we have a logo, and it's matte. We have a shot of my favorite place in Venice, California, a flame logo for the matte of the second input, plus a photo from Chicago as my background. So when we look at the result, it's a bit of a mess, but it proves a point. This isn't about moving these images around, it's about blending and compositing them together. Here you have flexible and simple functionality for blending clips over a background. And that can actually be two input clips. So as we look at the interface, you'll see that we have input clip 1 with its matte, input clip 2 with its matte that can be blended, and then the combination of those two, again, combined and blended over the background clip. So we can start to use our standard flame blending modes, or we can also use Photoshop compatible or GIMP options as well. Here let's use the Photoshop luminosity mode, and then you also have color correction at each of these different levels. So we can go ahead and color correct inside of that matte. As we move across, we could also color correct for the input 2 clip. And then finally, combine both of those, again, using perhaps Photoshop compatible mode to multiply that result over the background. Let's go back and also change the gamma of our initial combination of elements. And then, again, we can start to color correct that result over our background. Another straightforward and easy-to-use tool under the Flame effects is Bump Displace. What Bump Displace does is it takes any input clip, in this case this is just a photograph of a brick wall, and if we turn to the result, you can see that just by feeding in this as an input to the front and the displacement, you can see that a displacement has been applied. We can change the height of the displacement, we can change the softness, and we also have a light that we can move around. You can see to create quite an interesting effect. For simple warping options, the new Deform node can be a great solution. Warping tools with presets to quickly create effects like magnify, pinch, ripple, twirl, and wave effects. Here you see we have different parameters that we can adjust. Again, we have the on-screen widgets to start to move either the image input or the deform transformation or output input on screen. You can see we have the crumple effect. Here's the magnify effect. Again, we can start to manipulate the region that's affected by just on screen dragging the widget itself. Here we have a pinch. Again, we can change the radius or the amount. We can also do our ripple effect. We can change the amplitude, radius, as well as the number of ripples. All of these parameters, of course, can be animated as well. Here's the twirl effect. And here's the wave effect. So again, very standard effects that come in handy. They're all there at your fingertips. Another powerful new tool is the pixel spread node. The pixel spread is an edge texture extrapolator. It spreads the colors of pixels outward or inward from the edges of an input mat. Instead of shrinking the mat as you normally would, you can actually expand or contract the edge of the input clip. So let's have a look at that and how it works using actually an OpenEXR element. So we'll switch the viewing into linear, scene linear referred mode. So here we've got our element. And what we can do is, first we'll view that just over the spread only mode for our result output so we can see what it's actually doing. There are actually 4 different algorithms, 3 of which use the mat and 1 which actually uses the motion vector information from this OpenEXR rendered element. So let's take a look at parallax first. You can see that if I start to increase the amount of the parallax, it's really just going and basically warping the edges out. And I can also adjust the width of those edges, right? So this is going to just focus on the edges and allow me to integrate this element with its mat over a background. If we were to switch to the result output and result and zoom in so we can see the edges a bit more, we'll switch to another option, to stretch. This time, as we adjust the amount, you'll notice that the edges, it's quite subtle in this example, but notice here, for example, it's actually going to go ahead and stretch those edges out and really clean up the edges of that mat, basically filling that mat with a stretched version of the edges of our input clip. And again, we can also adjust the width of that as well. So again, very subtle manipulations here, but really cleaning up and manipulating the edges very nicely. Finally, if we switch back to our motion vector pass, you can see that there's the motion vector information. If we switch back to the pixel spread node and switch to the vector warp option, now you'll see that the edges are actually going to be determined by that motion vector analysis. So you can see that that information now be applied to the movement of the edges of this particular element in the foreground. So let's take a look at one other node inside of our Flame Effects tools, which is called Damage. All right, so Damage is a node that does exactly what it says. It creates film and video effects with presets that mimic old film, analog video, digital compression artifacts, hair, dirt, gate weave, just to name a few. The way it works is you can just enable these different tools, and as we do that, you can see that they're actually going to be applied directly to the image. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn on everything here, including the vignette. If I go to the individual tabs, such as color, I can start to use my additional tools. So in this case, I want to create maybe an older kind of archival sort of looking sepia sort of look. So I can reduce the saturation and put a little bit more of this sort of brown color into the image. Maybe adjust the gamma down a little bit. And the really cool thing about this is I can actually play these effects back right away. I'm not processing this. I'm actually, again, these are GPU accelerated. I'm just able to hit play and preview all of the different effects that I'm applying. In this case, I'm throwing everything at it. Blotches, color, dust, grain, scratches, splices, defocus, flicker, hairs, jitter, and vignette. But you can see the performance is really quite stunning. If we were to go back to something like splices and make an adjustment to the spacing, we can even take the timing down for that. And again, let's go ahead and have the the splices be applied to every 16th frame. And now you can see we can really create an interesting effect using basically gate weave. So again, one of the automatic effects that you get under the Flame Effects tools. Although we can't go into all of them today, there are over a dozen new Flame Effects tools to choose from.